Hello. We are live. I'm gonna wait a little bit, maybe like 2 minutes or so, and then we're gonna start this thing again. Okay, let me see. Let me just check here if you guys, okay, you started all muted. So like I said before, in about an hour from now, I'm gonna be unmuting you guys, and then we're gonna be talking about all this stuff. So at this point, I cannot hear you guys, but yeah. Let's see, we have 4 people so far. So let's wait a little bit until everybody arrives. We should get around maybe like 12 people like yesterday, maybe a little bit less. So yeah, I'm excited here. Let me see, let me just keep this one up. Interesting that I have full screen. Let's see. Okay. Just checking my settings in here, just to make sure we have everything correct. Because yesterday, I don't know if you noticed, like the video had slightly a little bit inferior quality in relation to the first one we had. And I think it was setting when I shared my screen here that it kind of like got a little bit like lost a little resolution, but it should be okay today. But you guys, let me know if you can send me like an email if you notice anything. I'm gonna start sharing here. So let's see, let's share it. Okay. And yesterday I turned on this thing. There was an option here that was optimized for full screen video clip. And I think that one kind of messed up the resolution a little bit. I'm not sure, but I have the impression that was the deal. So I'm gonna be sharing here. I'm gonna share the audio as well. So can you see full screen? Like, is everything sharp for you guys or? Okay, cool. Yeah, because yesterday it seems like everything was sharp. And when you finish the whole thing, it takes about like, I would say like 30 minutes to just process the video. And then during that time, it kind of like, I don't know what it did. I don't know if it was that option I had. It kind of like compressed too much. And I have no idea how, because like the first meeting we had, the final file was like 1.7 gigabytes, and this one was like 700 megabytes. So it was like, what's going on here? So I lost some resolution, but hopefully today is going to be all full HD. So some of you guys probably noticed that I posted this guy yesterday. This was about like another like hour to hour and a half of work after the meeting. And what happened is that, you know, it's like I noticed that if I'm sculpting during the first hour, but I'm talking at the same time, it's kind of like, you know, it's not like ideal, right? Like if you're doing an exercise of sculpture, because I'm going to be stopping and talking to you guys and explaining what I'm doing at all times. And then I'm going to open the mic for like 1 hour, and then some of the questions are related, but some questions are unrelated, so I have to go back and forth. So at the end of the day, I think it's probably like if I put it all together, it was like half an hour during our class, maybe like 40 minutes of actually doing any sculpting. Maybe I think it was more like half an hour. So I put another like hour to hour and a half on top of that to get to this point. Did a little bit of work like from the profile because everything was kind of like relationship, so kind of messed up. But I still have no idea how his side view looks like when he's smiling. The only pictures I've seen of him, he's basically like have a neutral pose. So I'm trying to figure it out. So it's gonna take, like I said, like a couple of days to figure out his face. I'm gonna do what was suggested yesterday, which was to use the spotlight to just like have something on the side there so people can see. So let's do this. Let's get this guy here. It's not something I normally do. You know, it's like I normally don't have anything here in ZBrush I have in the second monitor. But I'm gonna do if that helps people, you know. But it's not like what I normally do. So at this point here, you see like I'm still chasing some of the proportions. His teeth is very peculiar because it's kind of like narrow teeth. And I think I have a little bit of that too, not as narrow as he has, but like my teeth is a little bit narrow. You know, it's like I used the braces for a couple of years and stuff. But in that case here, I'm just gonna bring this stuff in just to help a little bit. It has a little gap in there as well. I'm gonna bring it up. Yeah, it's gonna be like a chase, of course. At the end, we're gonna double check all those proportions to make sure that everything is on point. But at this point, I'm just gonna play with this and then you know, try to find those landmarks right in his face. Like we said yesterday, when you're sculpting the nose in here, normally when you sculpt the nose, you notice like that you have this line that goes and crosses here. But in his case, it's very visible, right? Especially from the side right here. It's almost like it cuts all the way across, right? There is a compression. Normally, like if you have like if you're making like an angry face, you're gonna have some wrinkles forming around here. Oops, let's see. Heck, is this something related to my? Oh, I think it's the spotlight. How can I turn it off again? Like I don't use spotlight, but I believe like it's actually interfering with my. Let me just remove this altogether here. Let me just get this. Let's see if that works or if something else. Yeah, spotlight. I don't know exactly how it works, but I know you actually enter this project mode and then you can do stuff. So I'm gonna just, instead of that, I'm gonna have my picture like I had yesterday. I'm gonna put here. I can either put on the side. It's not gonna take much more space anyway. It's gonna be in the corner here. And I'm just gonna get my interface a little bit smaller, not by much. I'm like, oh, there you go. Did you guys notice that ZBrush has this problem with refresh, right? Like you see, like kind of like makes this weird stuff when you resize the whole interfaces. But anyway, so that's what we have. So I'm gonna just like make it a little bit bigger here. And we're gonna carve this nose again. Of course, like this sessions, like the first ones, if you guys already have your models in progress, right? You might get a little bit boring, but I mean, like it's part of the process of getting this stuff like from scratch. Some people are gonna get a kick out of this. Some people are gonna be like, oh, I'm kind of like, I already know this stuff. You know, it's like there's a lot of professionals in our class, and then some people are just gonna be maybe a little bored with it. But hopefully in the next ones, when we start like playing with the other stuff, you know, shaders and everything, then you guys gonna get a little bit more of some more fun. And because you're flies on the wall, I was thinking about torture you with some music. But music is that thing, right? Like people are very peculiar about it. So I don't know if I do that, but I have some preference when it comes to music, and I listen to a lot of progressive rock because I'm old, and I like progressive metal as well. So I have some progressive metal, and later I actually discovered, like super late actually, because this band exists for like 20 years, I think. The name of the band is Opeth, and those guys are freaking awesome, dude. They are like some of the best like progressive band out there right now, I think. And they started as a death metal band. So they started like just like with a kind of sound, which I don't quite like that much, but their progressive stuff is so awesome. So, you know, if you hate it, you just mute a little bit and watch me work, but I'm gonna play a little bit. You might like a little bit of it. So let's see if the volume is okay. But those guys are way too good, man. Okay. Is it playing at all? Oh, interesting. Okay. All right, so That's gonna add like you guys can dance in there if you want, you know. But you know, ideally it would be, for example, if you have your computers all set to go, it would be nice, like, so you guys don't get too bored, you know, to kind of like work with me, either like your own projects if you have anything going on right now, and then eventually, you know, taking a peek here what I'm doing, and so I really don't want to bore you guys, but you know, it's part of the process. I'm gonna remove a little bit of the volume here because of that thing that happens that I was talking about yesterday. Everything gets flatter against the lips, against the teeth when this smile occurs. So you're gonna lose a lot of volume in there. I'm gonna reduce that. And then let's just check from the side in here. Yeah, there's certain relationships that are so hard because like it goes from person to person and without having a ton of pictures of them. So for example, like how deep you get like this flap here, like from the nostril in relation to the cheeks, because you're not seeing from the other angles. But normally the tendency is to have a little bit deeper, right? Depending of course, like how extreme the smile is gonna be. But I was actually looking for references for like old man smiling from the profile, and then I found like some dudes here, of course, like completely different people, but you know, it's like this kind of face is kind of interesting to just have as a little reference in there, especially like to see how the nasolabial, you know, the contour works, and you know, as a reference, of course, like we can always look at the nasolabial, the way that it starts merging into another wrinkle that goes all the way to the chin. And this wrinkle here basically like is what causes this, you know, when there's a extreme smile or something like that, it stretches all the way. So that adds a lot of structure to it. And even like in a neutral pose, normally if you look at the chin, the tendency, if you are new into modeling, you just model that kind of little circle like that, right? But then if you start observing a little bit more, you're gonna see that normally this form is broken into 3 pieces. And then you have the center one that's a little bit more of this, you know, that people talk about, do when they're sculpting, right? Like a little bit of that little ball right here in the middle. But then you have those other 2 forms on the sides in here as well, which come from all the way from here, right? And it's kind of cool that you can see very visible in the little guy in there. Let's just make it a little bit bigger. Let's see if I can, actually, let's just grow it right there. Yeah. So again, like it's a totally different person, but it's just cool to see in terms of the anatomy of the whole thing. And then of course, like you're gonna start seeing the jowls, right? Like this parallel wrinkle right here, right? That's gonna be carved right here. So the person, as you age, you're gonna start getting more and more of those jowls. I don't quite have it, I believe, but I'm gonna get there soon. So I'm just gonna add something here just as a reference, and I'm gonna have to double check with Stan as well, like what his anatomy is actually, make sure that it works with his own face. But I'm gonna carve a little bit of that, just like building a little bit of the jaws in there. Because, you know, it's like he has that beard, although it's a very small beard, you still can, you know, it's like it's hard to see what's going on underneath. So I'm just gonna be building a little bit of the jaws here. And then I'm starting to build a little bit of this bit here, this wrinkle, right? Like actually not wrinkle, but the saggy skin right there. And then, yeah, a lot of stuff here also goes with like imagining things, right? Like I like doing this exercise, just like trying to imagine how those forms are without looking too much at them. And then I kind of start like, okay, let's look at the guy now. And then I start comparing things and like, okay, let's make the face a little bit more narrow, right? So let's switch back to him here. And in his case, I actually like to have a little bit smaller like that. And then make my model a little smaller too. Sometimes it's hard to see things when you have it too close because you start paying attention too much in the details and you don't look at the whole, right? So when you make smaller like that, then you start seeing like, okay, so his face looks much longer than this face that I have right now. And that might have to do like a combination of things with the camera and everything, but it seems like his forehead is much longer than, I wouldn't say like much longer because it has the hair in there, but I can make a little bit longer here just to, let's see what happens. What I'm doing here is just like with move brush, just using the Alt and move, and just like really carefully just poking it a bit, because I don't want to lose the structure I have for the temples right here. Oh, I don't know if you guys noticed, yesterday I tried this feature that was actually the, keeping you guys in a waiting room, but that was kind of sucky because some people were like waiting for me to approve them, and then I would have to stop and then approve them at all times, and that kind of I don't know if some people got a little upset with that. I don't know, nobody said anything, but it's kind of sucky. So I removed that so you guys can join the meeting at any time, and just yeah. So let's get this going. Let's go back to do some more carving here. So although I don't see a lot of the detail in here, what I can do, actually trying to exaggerate some of his features. I see a tiny little bit of indentation right here, right there in the cheek. So I'm gonna just mark this around there, just to have as a reference. And then let's see, look for some other landmarks here. First, let's just get his nasolabial a little bit more spread out. Let's go like that. And then his lips seems like it's a little bit longer than that. Let's get a little bit more, very small increments. And I need to add some thickness to the bottom lip as well. I have this fake teeth in there that I gave to you guys. I'm gonna just remove it for now, just hide everything. And I'm gonna get into his mouth and try to do some tweaking from the inside. So let's turn off the perspective. I'm just gonna use the lasso here, right? Like this brush lasso. And then using Control Shift, I'm just gonna create a little circle in here and go all the way here and try to isolate that area. You can actually hide the back as well. I don't need this. Let's go inside here and let's add some volume. One thing that's, you see like the lip is very, very flat right now. So we're gonna bring this whole thing back. So if you're working with this brush here with the clay buildup, what happens sometimes if you have something that's flat like this, see how little volume I have? If I try to sculpt in here, it looks cool from the front, and then you go in the back, it's destroyed, right? So to avoid that, to prevent it, you can just go to brush. Let me just move this. So you can go to brush, and then under brush here, you're gonna go to modifiers. And then let's see, is it modifiers? No, it's actually, it's the auto masking. So auto masking, and then you're gonna do like a back face mask right here. So if you click this one, so again, under brush, auto masking, and then back face mask, and I turn it on. So now if you sculpt the front here, it preserves the back, right? So that's good to have actually at all times. So let's do this. Let's go from the inside and start adding some volume here. Again, I'm using like the intensity of like 2, sometimes even 1 for clay buildup. And then you can control the pressure with your hand, right? Like if you're using a Cintiq or a tablet, you can just do that. Just add some volume in there. Smooth. Actually, the smooth, I can do similar thing. I can actually go to smooth and then go to brush. Again, go under the auto masking and then say back face mask, because I don't want that problem to happen the other side as well. Like smoothing here and then going to the other side is always smooth there. So we both have some back face masking now. So now that I'm adding some volume in here, the lips start looking a little bit better from the top. So let's check this angle here. So you see it's still pretty flat from the top, from the side. So we're gonna have to correct this peak right there. So we're gonna do this by adding some volume in the front. And the volume is like, if you look at the anatomy books, it's always like the same way that they represent them. Is like the bottom part, you're gonna feel like more like they're like two pads, right? Like, so it's like two volumes. So it's like side and side. But the top one, the top lip is like three volumes. There's the little thing in the middle, and then the other two volumes on the sides. But in this case here, like, you just gonna keep like two volumes. You can even see his face right there. The divot is right in the middle. So I'm just gonna build up that a little bit. Just make sure that's more volumetric, you know. And then of course the same deal that's happening with the top lip against the teeth. The bottom here as well is stretching, and this is stretching and covering the bottom lip, and then you are losing a lot of the volume, right? Like, so this normally when you sculpt like a neutral lip, you're gonna have a little bit more of this kind of lining here separating the lips, right? But then in this case here, things kind of blend together because there's a stretch going on. So I'm gonna reduce a little bit of that little divot and try to make it a little bit more organic. I'm gonna add more volume down here. A little bit of smooth. Sometimes I don't like using smooth. I just like keep sculpting. They just have the clay marks in there. But you know, sometimes they fix a lot of stuff for you anyway. So I'm just like making sure that everything is even. And then when it comes to the volume here now, for the chin, it can be a little tricky. Again, this volume here now, it's super thick. So I'm gonna remove a little bit of this one, and I'm gonna try to reverse the volume. So I'm gonna do this, remove a little bit of this volume, and I'm gonna increase some volume coming from the side. So in his case here, let's see, it's hard to tell what's going on with his face because the shadows are so deceiving. But I would say that there's a little bit more of a, you know, a stretch that comes this way as well. So I'm gonna add volume here a little bit, and I'm gonna remove from here. Keep working. Maybe add a little bit more volume right here. And it starts looking a little bit more like lips. You can add more volume, of course, like it can be very thick sometimes, but I'm gonna add a little bit more here. I want to make sure that the relationship, when I have the teeth in place, that thing's gonna fall correctly into place. I'm gonna add some more volume here as well. You can start feeling a little bit of the tension that's gonna happen in there with not the tension, but the compression when you don't have those lines, you know, when things kind of blend. Right, so get that. And then for the chin, you don't know what's going on underneath there, but there is a picture I found him, one of those I showed you guys yesterday. That was that one that he's super young here. And I'm not sure if that's part of like a defect in the picture, but it looks like he has a nice little dimple in there, you know, in the chin. So I'm not sure if I add something like that, but because I don't know exactly what's underneath his chin, like his beard in there. But I can actually, you know, just for fun, I can add a little dimple in there, and then keep working on those volumes. Those volumes, they are very deceiving because sometimes you add them from the front and they look correct, and as soon as you start rotating, it kind of like doesn't work anymore. So let's see, without teeth, it looks a little funny. Let's put the teeth back. And then, so the mouth started looking a little bit more organic now. Let me carve this a little bit more as well. And at this point here, I'm using most of the clay buildup. Let me just check the time here. So interesting that this menu here kind of didn't go. Can you guys see this menu on the top here or not? That says recording and everything? Or is it invisible for you? It's probably invisible, huh? You're only seeing the ZBrush thing, right? The ZBrush interface. Okay, cool. Yeah, because I see there's a menu in there, and it's kind of like interfering with the. It's not like auto hiding for some reason. So let's get it. Let's maximize it here and see if it goes away. Actually, it didn't. Sure. Let's see. Stop. Invite and meeting. So I see there is a chat. Oh, I see. Just now I realized there's a chat. So hey guys. Yeah, what I mentioned in my email, I was being serious, would be a little bit hard for me to concentrate like sculpting and texting at the same time. So that's why I asked you guys, like, if you can talk to me, you know, it's like with the microphone in the second part, that would be better. So I can actually concentrate in the work here. But I think when I set the whole system up, you guys are allowed, I think, to send yourselves like private messages and things like that. You can chat with each other, and I think everything's kind of open for that, and share files as well. I think I opened that. So remember, I have this marking here. I'm going to start smoothing things out. I just marked it because I want to make sure that I have that volume represented in there, even if it's very, very subtle. So I'm going to just, like, with the clay buildup, just remove a little bit of the bottom part and keep the top one. And I'm going to smooth it out. And I want to make sure that I have a tiny little bit of that. It has to be very subtle. Otherwise, it stops working. And then with the clay buildup, I'm going to try to refine this area here and make a little bit more of a, create some planes, you know. So I'm going to just, like, make a little bit more planar so I can actually see the form. It's always good, like, from time to time, just to find some planes, you know, it's like find out the forms, and then later on just smooth it out. But so let me just dig a little bit more here. And I think I'm gonna start doing a little work on the frame of his face, because it still look a little bit like too chubby for what his face actually is. So let's look for some other references here that can give us a little clue. So he has a very young version of him here. Not very young, but much younger. This one is actually cool because you can see a little bit of the shape of his skull, like the forehead. And that's kind of cool. And I like to see stuff like small in the screen. Sometimes I sculpt like very small, again, like, because it's hard to concentrate in something if it's too big. But I can tell that the relationship here between the nasolabial, the whole side of the face, and the mouth, for example, the mouth is much more like inside of this frame, right? So that means I'm going to have to actually pull this area here a bit more forward. And of course, there's a lot of feeling happening from the beard in here. So it's that trick, right? It's a little tricky to just, you know, guess what's going on in here, because the only picture we have of him without the beard is just like that young one. But we can definitely add a little bit more of volume here. So this, so the bottom lip sits a little bit deeper into the face in relation to the frame, right? And then as for the cheek in here, there is always a peak, right? This peak here that's caused by the zygomatic bone. And of course, like now you have the zygomatic bone, but it's covered with all this compression happened with the fat pads. So it's a little bit of a reference kind of thing. You're gonna have to look back and forth the reference and find out, you know, how much of the zygomatic is being covered and how much is being compressed. Like I mentioned yesterday, you're gonna have this whole area here that's being compressed, right? So you have a squint, and the squint, the tendency is to have a little bit more of a squint, like in the inner area, right? And then it kind of like fades out to the outer area here. So I'm just gonna fade in here. I'm gonna start building a little bit of the wrinkles. And those wrinkles here, if I had to mark them, if let's say if he was a much older person, you're gonna always see that those wrinkles here, they tend to do this kind of movement, right? They go from here around the face and they start connecting. I'm just sketching here for you guys to see. And then from this point here, they start flaring the other way around, right? So here, it's gonna start doing this movement. They're gonna do this, and then from here, of course, you can actually do, you know, it's like, and go that way, right? It's always like kind of like similar direction like that. I just sketch here just for you guys to see. And then from this point on, of course, like you have those wrinkles in the forehead, right? But it's kind of like, it's always like this rhythm, you know, like it goes like that, and goes like this, and all of this creates this impression, right? That someone is actually, you know, compressing their face. But I'm gonna erase this because I just messing around. So yeah, everything has to have a meaning, you know. It's like when you're sculpting something, the first thing we do, like, let's just try to reproduce what we are seeing in there. So basically, like, we kind of like get the, you know, it's like sometimes the likeness is, it's good, but then we are not paying attention to what's happening to create that facial expression, you know. But when you have that in the back of your mind, you don't need to be obsessed with it, but just having in the back of your mind that those forms are created for a reason, you know. It's like there are a bunch of things being compressed. If you have that in your mind, normally when you sculpt, you're more careful about, you know, why things are the way they are. And gives you more freedom to actually experiment as well, because like I said before, my portraits, they are not supposed to be like a one-to-one representation of the subject. The main intention is to make those characters look alive, you know. I want them to people to actually relate to them. That's my main goal, you know. And I think it's to me the best gift you can have, like you know, is get a compliment from some artist you really admire, saying like something like, oh, you know, your character has soul. To me, like, this is the biggest compliment, you know, because detail is like the easiest part of everything, right? Like, you have access to alphas nowadays, you have like the texturing XYZ, but applying all this stuff in a model that has a very bad structure, that means, like, you know, the bad primary forms, and then just covering in alphas, that's not a good way to go. I mean, like, it's cute for a little bit, but then it falls apart, you know. It's like after some time, especially like if you look at some portraits out there, that they look pretty realistic at first sight, but then you see the other angles and they don't work. I mean, like, they look okay from other angles, but they only look good from one side. And I try to make, I try my best, like, to make it at least convincing from other angles, even if I don't have the reference, by using a little bit of my internal library, right? Like I was saying before, if you do a lot of portraits and things like that over time, you build your internal library and you learn how those forms, they actually are connected. And then makes things easier if you want to create something, idealize something, you know. Just like back in the day, right? Like a lot of people nowadays, they are very knowledgeable about anatomy, for example. We have like some great examples in our class, very knowledgeable people when it comes to anatomy. And in the anatomy of the face is no different, you know. If you don't have the knowledge about like how those pieces of the puzzle go together, then you're gonna be always like confined to like match, for example, like blueprints, right? You're gonna have to use a blueprint, otherwise you're never gonna get anything to look right or convincing. But if you have a little bit of the knowledge of the structures behind things, then you're a little bit more free to create things, you know, and refine those forms like from imagination or from your internal library based on like similar subjects you sculpted. So yeah, my intention is always to make something convincing, but not necessarily completely realistic. Kind of like that philosophy, you know, so with the Impressionists back in the day, right? They are, you know, it's like you see like all that school of the flamencos, right? Like the school of painting every single detail you see, and then you compare that to the Impressionists, right? We were just trying to capture the light, and then they didn't care about the detail. It's just all about the light. So for me, it's kind of like it's about the soul, you know, and the detail and all the realistic stuff to me is just like kind of like some tools, you know, it's like to achieve that. But I'm trying to capture, like, put some soul in my characters, you know, especially when we get into the eye, like especially shaders, you're gonna start seeing those characters come to life, and it's gonna be very fun to actually teach you guys how I create like the shaders and the sculpt for the eyes, because I want to see you guys using similar stuff, you know. It's like I see some of you guys have like really awesome work already started, and it would be nice to see some of those techniques applied to them, you know. So I'm excited to see that. I'm gonna just around here, let me try to mark. He has a bigger wrinkle. You see how small is my reference right there, and it can be a really bad thing, of course, because that's not useful for detail. But for primary forms, I kind of like to have like small reference like that, because I can kind of just concentrate on the frame, you know. So I'm gonna build a little bit of the volume here as well. The temporality is a little it's a little tricky because in his case here, it's bony, but it's actually, let's see, it's not very volumetric. I don't have a super well-defined brow ridge as well. You know, it's like my face is a little bit softer, kind of like his. I don't even have like a lot of definition in my zygomatic, you know. Yeah. So let's see what we can explore here. I can actually start maybe like adding maybe just block out maybe some hair or some, I'm probably not gonna go with this hair here though. This is like it's 270s. Actually, it's not 70s, right? Like this is like Terminator 2. Jesus, this is like, when was Terminator 2? It was like 90 something. Is it 90s? I think it's 90s, right? Yeah, it was so funny because like Terminator 2, when I watched it, I recorded it in VHS, and I rewatched it so many times. Like, that was the movie together with Jurassic Park that I was like, oh my god, dude! And I was like working in a bank, right? Like I was like, man, I wish I could do this for a living one day. That would be so sweet. And then, you know, just streaming, living in Brazil, not speaking English or anything like that. I learned English. I'm still learning, you can tell. But, you know, came to the United States when I was like 32 years old. Yeah, 32 when I came to the United States. Like not knowing the language at all, just like hacking my way. And then all of a sudden I was there at ILM for the first, I would say for the first couple of months, like maybe like 3 months or so. I was like, it was so surreal to me. I was just looking around and I saw all those props, and we have the T-Rex that came from Stan Winston, like the prop. And it's a pretty big one, actually. It's, I would say like, I don't know, maybe like 4 feet. No, maybe less than that, 3 to 4 feet tall. And I seen all those props, you know, it's like I have some props like the maquettes done for Terminator 2. And then all of a sudden you're working in this studio, the same studio that did both movies, you know, that made you really want to work in this industry. So it's kind of cool, you know. Nowadays, I'm kind of like done with the industry. No, just kidding. Actually, I'm not kidding. I'm kind of done with the industry. But I have to find out the way to actually make a living with something else before I can have this option. But I'm kind of like, you know, I'm just into doing my own shit nowadays. Yeah, I have much more fun doing this, you know. And streaming, to me, this is a brand new experience too. I never streamed before. I did a couple of conferences. You watched like my summit presentation and everything. But streaming is very new to me. So you have to forgive me if I'm kind of like doing some mistakes doing my stuff or in the recordings or whatever. But I'm trying to improve every session, you know, try to get a little bit better. You know how tricky it is, right? I'm kind of using that reference right now for like mostly his nose, but then his nose is going to change shape because of the smile. So I have to be very careful the way I'm actually building this, because when he's smiling here, right, the nasal labial is pulling everything here. So it's getting wider, and everything is getting higher other than the tip of the nose. Like I said, this is going to change position, but very little. If you see some animation of someone smiling, you know, it's like the tip of the nose is kind of there. It moves a little bit, but it's not by much. But this whole area here is what moves the most. And then, of course, if you're working with like facial expressions like anger, right? Like you're going to start seeing like things like that. So you're going to have this type of wrinkle that's going to form right there, right? And then, of course, this whole area is going to start coming down and all. And, you know, like you're going to get like a angry Stan Winston right there, right? Just by adding that tiny little wrinkle in there, you can see already adds a little bit of expression to him. But yeah, we're not going to do that. We like smiley Stan Winston. So yeah, when I talk about the portraits, I have a little philosophy behind it, which is I tend not to do portraits of people who I do not admire. So for example, doing like some actor, I don't have a lot of admiration for actors, to tell you the truth, because they're professional liars. That's what they are. You know, it's like they make a living just lying to you, right? Lying about emotions, they cause emotional things like that. But in terms of like what they do to society, other than you know, entertaining us, I don't have a lot of respect. So I tend to do portraits of people who actually inspires me. You know, it's like someone like Stan Winston. You know, it's like I said, those two movies who actually inspired me to work in this industry came from, you know, from part of his studio, you know, part of his work. And then, of course, Rick Baker with all the amazing stuff he did. Giger, I was like, you know, really big on Giger back in the day as a teenager. Still admired like, a lot. So like you're gonna see those portraits of those masters, but they are normally like people who really I admire. You know, I could go like the easy route and try to get the Instagram stardom. Go the easy route and just like start doing like pop artists portraits, right? But some of those old farts I'm modeling, nobody knows who they are, you know. But if, let's say, like if I start doing like some, I don't know, like pick any like a singer or actor, you know, so I can do some portraits or even like cartoons, you know, and then people is gonna start like, you know, resharing that shit forever, and then you're gonna get a ton of people following you. And I've seen this many times. Some people get a kick out of it. I don't like it. I don't like, you know, I want to do whatever I want to do. I don't want to do it just because I'm gonna get likes. But it's pretty cool that I'm getting likes anyway, just with the stuff I'm making, which is really nice. The cool thing about this whole Instagram thing that's new for me, by the way, like I started, if you saw my first post from 2017, so it was April, I think it was April 2017 when I started posting on Instagram. And I was really excited about it because I was kind of burned out of Facebook with the politics. And if you follow me on Facebook for a while, you're gonna notice that I was a pain in the butt, like until like last year, I would say, like with the politics. More like a reaction because a lot of people were just talking a lot of bullshit, and I was just reacting to a lot and then becoming super vocal about shit. And then at the end of the day, you know, I was getting my wife upset, and people who I like actually upset. And then I was like, I realized, you know what, like there are options in life, right? What am I gonna do now? Gonna get everybody pissed off at me, or I'm just gonna, you know, try to maybe like share some memes and bring some smiles. And then take care of the people close to me, you know, instead of like getting them pissed off, just like take care of people close to me, because life is very short, right? I'm 47 now, 2 kids. So I'm just like trying to become a better person, I guess. But I'm still an asshole, don't get me wrong. Okay, let's see. Let me get some, oh, this is a nice way to select. I don't know if you saw it yesterday, but if you're not very familiar with ZBrush. So if you, normally like this is the sculpt mode, right? You have the edit here, but then, and then you have move, scale, and rotate. When you go to one of those 3, you get this manipulator in there. And then it's similar to the old transpose thing. So for example, if I turn this one, the gizmo off, then you're back to the old transpose, right? So I can turn it on and off. And then you can do this with both. I mean, like if you click Control and you click and drag, you're gonna try to follow the topology. So if you have a topology that's fairly okay, like this one was a Dynamesh, it's very easy to create those selections based on the topology, right? So right there, it was easy for me to select the top lid. And if I want to isolate those areas, I can do the opposite. I can go towards the hole in here. So if I click right here and I drag, it's gonna go down. And then I'm gonna go up again. So let's go down. And then now I'm gonna try to isolate. Let's see if I go side to side. So isolate just the top lid right there. A little bit like that. So it's an okay way to do it. And I'm just gonna try to pull this corner a little bit higher. One thing that I mentioned like a couple of times online is some of my, not rants, but you know, it's like talking about stuff in general, like when it comes to modeling, is that it's very true. It's not like just talking like to sound pretty, but when it comes like to working on something that you really want to dedicate some time to, like you know, those portraits I do, I dedicate like a good chunk of time. This is like weeks of work, and you're gonna notice like this process is a little, you know, it takes time. It doesn't pop out of nowhere. And that's because I'm reusing a lot of stuff, right? But what I want to say is that it takes like very little time to get a lot done, and a lot of time to get just the final part done. So for example, like I use that example, it takes me like 10% of the time to get 90% of the work done, right? And only, and then for the last 10% of the work, it takes me 90% of the time, because that's where the details are, right? Like the devil's always on the details. And then it's basically like fixing things and finding, for example, like this is not the time yet, but for example, I would be really trying to concentrate on the eyelids, from thickness of the eyelids to look more convincing, to how it wraps around the eyeball, right? Like, so now I'm kind of starting to do that, but I'm not going to go too deep into that right now. But you see, like it's trying to follow the contour of the eyeball at this point. And then the thickness of in the bottom part as well. So when we're going to be texturing this whole area here, you're going to see like the types of pinks we're going to add, and how we're going to be connecting the bottom lid to the eyeball. And what I normally do is, just like as an example here, we're going to get into that. But so if I have like from the top right there, let me just add one subdivision level, maybe just get it a little bit better. So I'm going to use my little trusty standard brush with the alpha 39, like I mentioned yesterday, right? Alpha 39. And then with a little tweak that I showed you before, that little, you know, making a point. And just as a reminder, when I go to stroke, the default is 0.2, but I always crank it 10 times less. So basically like 0.02 is my new lazy step. Turn off like lazy snap if it's on, because that thing messes up a lot of stuff. So just the way you see right there. So instead of like using it for carving now, because that's what I'm doing right now, right? Like they're just carving. I can use it just to define some of those edges. So I'm gonna just go here, and I'm just gonna go slowly, just define it. You can make a very sharp edge. It doesn't matter, because we're gonna be smoothing those things out soon. But just to define that, I need that area to be a little bit more square, right? So if you want to make sure that that area is a little bit more square, you can always use your edge polish brush, edge polish, and then make it very small, and then you can polish that area. Just make sure it's nice and flat. And then one thing that some people, they think that at this point here things are good to go, and you can just like, you know, it's gonna look all realistic. But then if you look at the, you don't even need to look actually, you know, it's like just to think logically about how the forms are, right? Like I said before, like how one form is affecting the next one, like the teeth that's stretching the top lip, like I was saying before. If you look at the structure here, what we're sculpting is actually, it's a skin, right, that has a certain thickness that's colliding with the eyeball. So if that's happening, it's natural that we have some compression going on. So what I normally do, I get my clay build up, and I get like really close. First, I have to make sure that's in contact, right? They're in contact with each other. So it has contact in there. I'm just gonna pull this one out a little bit like that. And then I get really close to the eyeball right here. And then I kind of add a little bit of a sculpt brush right there, closer to it. And then I'm gonna start smoothing things out. So at the end, you're gonna have a little bit of a concave shape right there. You can start seeing right there, there's a little bit of a concave. And this is gonna go all the way around, like that. And this is not what's gonna cause the little reflections that you see. This is just to create a little bit more of a, it's a thinner kind of lip that you're creating right there, closer to the eyeball. And what's gonna happen is that when you have your scatter happening, like with the subsurface, this is gonna be very nice, you know. It's like it's gonna be very nice. I make a wicked Borat because, you know, Brazilian. I'm pretty much Borat. Anyway, so it's very nice. So I'm gonna do this, and then once you have that done, then we're gonna create a little. He's cracking up. So I'm gonna create a little half pipe here, right? So this is gonna be the next step when we start playing with this in Maya. I say half pipe because I was a skateboarder back in the day, and so that's gonna be a little ramping here. We're gonna create a blend that comes all the way from the eyeball to the eyelid, right? So it's gonna be like very, very low res. And that's the one that we're gonna add a nice shader in there and gonna create the reflections and everything. But this one we are working on right now, just this little detail that I'm probably not gonna explore too much right now because I wanna revisit, like I said. This one here is just for the scatter to look more natural, you know? You see, like, it's not gonna do much if you're looking from a distance like that. But if you notice, like, I love to post like super close up of my stuff. And I want to make sure that things are holding up, you know. It's kind of like it's a ballsy kind of move because sometimes the model doesn't look that great and is not ready to show that distance. But actually, I get a kick out of what people have to say, you know. It's like I post knowing that I'm not happy with it just yet, and I just want to make sure that people have a similar feeling. And then normally it's what happens, you know. There is a lot of people, I would say majority of the artists I know, they kind of like posting just the pretty things, you know. It's like only when the model is completely refined and looks super nice, so they're not going to feel like judged, I guess, you know, by other artists looking at them. And I'm kind of like, I kind of don't care too much. I would say I care, of course, like especially in front of you guys who have more experience, you know. I'm gonna feel a little bit like, oh man, I'm doing this stuff here, but someone is probably judging right now. But I kind of like that, you know. It's like I like showing my mistakes as well, the way I approach things. And I think that's the great advantage of this class, that you guys are seeing everything kind of unfiltered, you know. And seeing that process, I think it's important, you know. It's like it can be any artist, actually, not just me. I mean, like any artist you can look. I was talking to Sven today, my colleague at ILM, who is in our class. And I don't know if he's in the audience right now, probably not. But yeah, he was saying like, yeah, I learned a lot yesterday. I was like, oh, really? He was like, yeah, it's like, it's all in the tiny details, you know. It's like in how you do certain things, you know. It's like, and it's going to be with any artist. I mean, like, you're going to look at any of you guys, the way you work, and I'm going to learn something too, you know. It's like if I was doing your class, I would be learning too. But at the end of the day, that's what it is, you know. It's like, it's just a fly on the wall thing. You see like how I'm having trouble with this area here is like the topology is not helping. So if I turn on, let's see, oh, frame here. Yeah, you see like I have like a lot of pinching going on in there. So at this point here, I could, let's see if I do this. I can do this right now, I think. Because this is the base mesh I gave you guys. It's the same topology. But I don't need to stick with it, so let's do something. So if I click Shift and I click the first subtool here, if you are not familiar with ZBrush, you hide everything but that subtool, right? So before I do anything, this is my highest resolution, and I'm gonna just duplicate this subtool. So duplicate, and now I have head and head 1. So I'm gonna be working on head 1, and this one is the one that I'm gonna actually do some Z-remesher. So I'm gonna just go back resolution to the lowest resolution, and I'm gonna go to deformation. And first I'm gonna do it, make it symmetrical. So smart resymmetry. So I'm gonna click that one. So it's fairly symmetrical. I'm doing this just to make sure, because ZBrush over time, it loses symmetry slightly, you know, sometimes quite a bit. So I'm just making sure that everything is symmetrical. So I have this guy symmetrical, and now what I'm gonna do, I'm gonna go to geometry, and I'm gonna delete all the lower levels. So click delete lower. Whoop. Now I don't have all the other levels, and then that way I can just Z-remesh it. So I'm gonna just Z-remesh it with the default settings and see what I get. To have more control, what I normally do with the Z-remeshing is a very good way to do it, actually. If you guys don't create a lot of polygroups, you have to start doing that, because it can be very helpful. So for example, if I have like this area around the eyes here, right? So if I select it, do it kind of like roughly here. Let's see, we can get inside right there. So, oh, that's too much. I'm just gonna paint. It's so funny that I'm sculpting stuff without the tablet here. So sometimes I go for minutes and minutes sculpting stuff without the tablet, just like using the mouse, and then my hand starts hurting. It was like, what the hell? Why is it hurting? I was like, oh fuck, I forgot to use the tablet. But that comes with age, guys. You all gonna get there. All gonna get old and senile like I am. Okay, so so now I have this little mask in there, right? And of course, like it would be ideal to do the same around the mouth and things like that. But just to show you here as an example, so if you go to your polygroups, you can just say you're gonna have group masked, right? So if I turn on polygroups here, it's all red, right? And they have the mask in there. By the way, to hide the mask, you can just like press Control H, and then it hides the unhides. So I'm gonna keep it hidden so you can see what's going on in there. So that's red, and I'm gonna do group masked. I can do it again actually, just to change the color so you can see the colors, right? So now you see right there. Okay, so now I have two different polygroups. Of course, like it's great for selection, right? You can hide stuff and unhide stuff and isolate those areas. If you do carefully, doing around the nose, the same exercise I just did, if you do, for example, the cheeks, or simply like one around the mouth, this can be very helpful to help to guide the ZBrush. It's actually, to me, it works slightly better. I don't know. That's the impression I have than the how you call the guides, right? You have this. Let's see if I can find it here. Where is it? The ZBrush guides. This brush here, you can actually draw over the surface like that. You can create those lines, right? And of course, it's dependent of the size of the brush. So if I do this, you're gonna see like the steps are very large. But if I make it very small brush like that, then you're gonna get more definition like that, right? But in my experience, like in the past, I would use a lot of those guys and try to force the flow of the edges using those. But then the polygroups, they give me a lot of interesting stuff as well. So I just use those for now. So I'm gonna go back to geometry and then ZBrush, make sure I don't have any mask, make sure that polygroup still there, yep. And I'm gonna say, let's ZBrush, keeping groups. So there's this option there, groups. And then the total target polygon count, right? I tried to start this very low, enough to get the resolution. Let's see if maybe like with 10, if you get it, see what it does. And the ZBrush is dependent on the symmetry as well. So if you see, like I'm working in symmetry right here. If I turn it off, then the ZBrush is gonna calculate everything asymmetrically, and it's gonna take double the time. So if it's symmetrical like that, it's much easier. So I'm just gonna do that, ZBrush, and see what I get. Calculating. It's actually very interesting the way it kind of like tries to read the forms, right? Sometimes before you do the ZBrush, to help ZBrush to find those edges, you can actually make things much sharper, you know? It can just go like on purpose and just like chamfer this whole thing. You know, it's like and get much better results. But you see, like my polygroups now are preserved in there. It's not perfect, you know, but at least it kind of like create a little bit of an edge flow around the eyes. And for the mouth, it resolved fairly okay. You know, it's like it's not a circle, but it's okay in there. And at 10, it actually gave me an interesting result that the resolution is pretty low. But of course, now what's the next step? The next step, now we have a low resolution mesh, which is great. We can go back all the way to this. Let's see what's the resolution. It's like 23K for this base mesh. But remember that this is a duplicate of the original one. So what I'm gonna do now, I'm gonna just subdivide once, twice, right? And oh, I can tell that this area here are gonna have problem with the reprojection. Yeah, this area here probably gonna get some trouble. So if you find that some areas you might get in trouble with the reprojection, I would say like just go ahead and mask them. You can fix this later, you know. But I just like for now, I just like to avoid like things spiking and creating a ton of trouble. Just gonna mask that area. Just gonna remove that one. Corners of the mouth normally are trouble when you're trying to project with the closed mouth, but with the open mouth it should be okay, I think. So let's see. Let's start projecting this one. So I have this one visible. I'm gonna turn on the second layer in the background, and then let me just see how we are doing with the time here. Oh yeah, we are about to open the mic for you guys. My alarm should go off soon. So this one, I'm gonna just go back here under the geometry tab. I'm gonna go to project all. Yep, alarm is sounding, so it's pretty close. And I'm gonna do a project all in here. And I have just that corner of the eye masked. Let's see if that, yeah, I got some spikes in the inner side of the eye here as well, like in the caruncula area. So I'm gonna undo it and I'm gonna just mask that area as well. You can project using the projection brush later, but just to avoid, like prevent those crappy spikes. So I'm gonna do that again. So that's better. And then let's try one more subdivision level. Let's see how many we can get. So 375, I don't know, let's keep it 375 for now. And then, like I said before, so now we can either just tweak that. Let me open the mic here for you guys. Where are my settings? Okay, so unmute all. All right. So now you guys can mute yourselves. So you have the option to mute yourself, I believe. And then whoever is going to talk, then you just unmute yourself and feel free to ask me questions.
Freedom.
Now you're free, guys. Now I unleashed you guys.
I was wondering one thing. It feels like you transitioning pretty smooth between secondary, tertiary forms, just back and forth, and whatever feels right. Is that right? Or,
yeah. Like I said before, like there are certain models that I exercise, like let me push like this very low resolution mesh, just the primary forms and go as far as I can. And I've seen like some artists do this, like they are masters at doing that. But I normally I go straight to capture the essence of the character, right? And it's very hard when you're trying to concentrate specifically just in the architecture of the face, which is basically like the primary form is just the architecture of it. So it's almost like it's a combination of the primary and secondary forms for sure. Tertiary is much later, but I mean, primary and secondary to me they're very well connected, right? And it's not like I started from a cube, for example, or a sphere. I already started with something that had a little bit of a structure in there. So that's why it was like easier for me to just like go straight to the building up those forms, you know. But if I was building from a sphere, I probably would like be more focused on the primaries first.
Yeah. Okay, cool.
Yeah. Let's see, let's hide that guy. So that's my new base mesh right here. I don't know if that's gonna be a great advantage. Let me see what I get in here. Actually, yeah, he fixed this area here pretty good. So this one is gonna be better. But yeah, around the eyes here, I'm not so sure that got better. But like I said, this is just a sketch. And then from this, we're gonna actually project with decent base mesh later on. So not too cool. I'm gonna save the head and there as a backup, but I'm gonna keep working on this one for now, from now on. Let me get back to the reference here. And let me find another. See, like this one here is like, it's such an interesting picture because look how flat the image is, right? So you can see his entire face and the ears almost like facing you like that. That means like this was taken from a distance, right? You can tell he's talking in some event. He has a microphone in front of him. So this person probably was trying not to be too intrusive. So he was like a paparazzi or a reporter, like from very long distance, probably using like a 200, even a 300 millimeters lens, you know? That's why his face is so flat. That's why it's this chase, you know, it's like when you work from this type of picture to see, you know, what kind of lens they are actually using. In this case here, if it's the face and all the way to his waistline, most of the time it would be like a 35 or a 50 millimeters, you know. So that's basically what we are using now. So this is a 50 millimeter south. So that's, you know, that's kind of similar to what we have.
Hey, Kris.
Yep. Hello.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, I'm hearing you.
Okay. I guess you sometimes get stuck. I mean, I'm just guessing, I'm not sure. Probably you don't. What kind of questions do you find yourself like asking again and again? Like when you don't know what's the next step, like perhaps you have some things that you go and check.
Oh yeah. So one thing when I noticed like that things are not working, I mean, like we are just like the second day in. So at this point, I'm not too concerned about things. I'm still feeling it and seeing where things are going. But at some point, if things are not quite working from all angles, it has to look at least reasonable from all angles, right? If it's not working, then I'm going to start checking certain relationships I always go through, which is basically like the corner of the eye in relation to the corner of the mouth and the nose. How those elements, they are kind of like interacting with each other from the profile and 3/4. The zygomatic volumes as well, right? Like if it's a neutral pose, I'm going to have more of a clue about the position of the zygomatic, not the position, but the volume itself. But in this case here, if I'm working with the facial expression, how much of this is being built up on top of the zygomatic, right? So like things like that, like I try not to stick too much to a single camera angle. So when I go to the side, I try to find those relationships, It's like, it's normally like eye in relation to the corner here of the nose in relation to the corner of the mouth. And then of course, like keeping in mind like how those volumes are being represented. For example, the bottom lip here, I think I can bring it back a little bit. But yeah, other than that, I mean, like I keep working on those models like for a long time, right? And I always find stuff to work on. And I don't know if with you guys is the same, but I might be really happy with the model at 2 a.m. and then I wake up in the morning, it looks like shit, So I do this. I even mentioned like in my summit, it's like when I was talking about, I was being serious. If I'm completely burned out, and that's not uncommon because I mean, like I came from 9 hours at work today, and then I helped with bedtime for my 2 kids, and then I come and sit here and I work for a couple of more hours, right? So at the end of the night, I'm pretty burned, like fried, and then but I'm still trying to push myself and get some stuff done. Otherwise, I would go crazy. So the way to trick my brain is like to flip things upside down. Yeah, and because I mean, like it's that same technique, I guess, like people who do like mostly like drawings and paintings. They do like the side, kind of like the flip, right? Like use a mirror and you check things with the mirror. Or if you're doing digitally, you're just like flip horizontally. But in my case here, sometimes I use the mirror thing. I actually take pictures of my monitor and then I flip things in the app. And but when it's the model, I kind of like tend to do like more like upside down stuff. For example, like the nasolabial, like the corner right here. So you see, like I'm starting to see that it's a little bit too thin, and then I'm gonna start like trying to build this area here, kind of like remove the volume a little bit, and then build it up around this area here a little bit more. So yeah, like any trick you can do, is like to try to see the model in a different way. It keeps you going for a little bit longer, but eventually you're gonna have to fall asleep. Hopefully not on top of your keyboard, but yeah, it happens too. It's like I fall asleep here in my chair sometimes waiting for renders. Like freaking, yeah.
Thank you, Kris.
Yeah, you're welcome.
I was very happy with my model yesterday that I just started of Stephen Hawking, and I sent it to my mom, and I said, "Hey, who is this?" Obviously, I thought it was super recognizable, and my mom said, "Is it my boyfriend?" Last stage of Stephen Hawking, so I was like, Jesus Christ.
Yes, definitely. It's like it's. I don't know if you saw this one. I'm gonna even pull it here because it's so funny. But let me see if I can find it. Let's get to my Instagram.
Your confidence is destroyed after those family comments. I know.
I know, right? So let's see.
But the victim is my mom's boyfriend here.
So this one here, check this out. So I posted this one some time ago. Likeness is a bitch, right? Who I think I'm sculpting when I started like doing Giger, and then who people think I'm sculpting, they are pointing like, "Oh, is this Marlon Brando? Is this guy? Is that guy?" I was like, "It's Kingpin." I was like, "No."
Yeah, totally.
So true, man. So true.
But that's the thing, you know, it's like at some point we get things to look correct, and it's normally like how much time you spend on it, right? And sometimes no matter how much you try, there's something missing. And the best thing to do is just abandon the model for a little bit. It can be like a day, sometimes a week. And there's no better way to learn form, especially with facial form, than modeling like different subjects at the same time. That's why I keep flip-flopping all the time. I have this mega project, right, that never ends, which is basically like revisit all my old models and try to improve them and create like nice renders and revisit them and everything. But I have all this series of portraits that I want to finish eventually, all of them. And I want to have them printed with nice quality and everything. Maybe like have an exhibition just about, you know, just those masters of different medias or whatever. But it's just so much work, you know, with a full-time job. That's why I'm saying, I was kind of like, it's that trade-off, right? Like you get to the industry and you're happy because you're in the industry now, and then all of a sudden you don't have the time to experiment anymore. I mean, like before the industry, I was producing a lot. I was a banker, right? But I have all this time, and I was going to college for fine arts as well. And all the you know, the challenges I won in the past, like back in the day, like 2003, 2004, and CG Talk, was all like during that time of experimentation and everything. And then I felt that when I got to the studio, you know, it was like I was happy because I was finally in the industry and everything. But I kind of like stopped evolving for a long time, because you get into that hamster spinning wheel, you know. It's like you're just now in production and you're just like doing your best to deliver stuff, but you're not experimenting anymore. And then you combine that with having kids, that we had Matthias in 2010. And if you look at my Facebook around that time, I wasn't producing anything. I was like, for about like maybe like a couple of years, I was just, you know, at the dad mode, just like being trying to be a good dad, I guess. And then I stopped producing a lot, you know. It's like I kind of like fell off the radar, and really started like producing more work again after the THU. So I started like kind of getting excited again and experimenting more with form and digging deeper into portraits and things like that. But before, I was kind of like just in this numb state, you know. It's like not producing much. And it's interesting, you know, it's like some events in your life, they led you to be a little bit more proactive about what you want to do with your life. I remember like I'm not a religious person, and I'm not an atheist either. So I have my belief that there is a God. It's just like to me, is that the source of all things. Basically, like if you consider the universe, that's God to me. You know, it's like it's a combination of all the energies in the universe, I guess. But I remember like being you know, it's like being a banker, and I was like, what I'm doing with my life, you know. It's like I have my apartment, I got the money to buy the apartment now and everything, living in Brazil, but I'm not happy because I'm not producing any art or anything like that. I was always passionate about art, and I was like, what am I doing? You know, it's like, and I kind of like, I remember like just being in my room and I praying, like, you know, it's like I pray like, man, just give me a little you know, direction here, because I'm kind of feeling lost, you know. And then all of a sudden I got this urge to actually finally go to college, you know, because I was already you know, 27 years old, and I was just like happy being a banker. And I was like, you know what, let's do something about that. And just like, you know, 27-year-old, let's go to college, fine arts, and then had a blast in there, you know. And then during the college time, I actually got a job outside of the bank. I finally got some balls to get out of the bank and just took a license, you know, and stayed there, working this little company in Brasilia, the capital of Brazil. And that's the company that actually got me out of the bank. And then from there, during this time, I actually won those competitions at CG Talk. And then when I won the competitions, all things started happening, you know. But it was thanks to this, like, not like a divine inspiration or anything, but, you know, it's like, it can be like that God, maybe like it's your own, it's yourself or whatever, you know. It's like it's just your the way that your psyche works. But for me, it worked great, you know. It's like I was just like, yeah, I just like decided that's not working for me. I have to do something about that, and that's what I did. And that's what I normally do in my life, you know. It's like if something is not quite working, I was like, I'm gonna do something to change that. So if I'm not happy with my art, I was like, okay, let's try to push a little harder and see what I can get, you know. and it's always like with very low expectations too, you know. It's like because once you stop having fun with stuff and everything becomes a job, then you screw, you know. It's like this whole thing about the fly on the wall to me came as first, of course, like there is a strong financial motivation because we need a new roof in our house. So that's the main thing, right? But also because I thought, like, if I'm gonna do a class, right, should I do this with some company that's gonna take like half to 70% of all the money, right? They're gonna pocket that, and I'm gonna have to have like all those objectives. I'm gonna have to check all those boxes for them, and make everything super formal, you know. It's like, am I gonna have any fun doing that? Or what about if I do my own class at my own time, you know? It's like, and I can just share with whoever is interested. And I had no idea how many people would show up, you know. It's like interested to learn from me. And then and I was so surprised, you know. It's like, and I'm really glad that you guys show all your support, you know. So I'm really thankful for you guys. But sorry, I went like in a it's your turn to ask questions, and I'm like yapping here. Yeah.
It's a cool story. I like it.
Cool, man.
Hey, Kris, can you hear me?
Yeah.
So, do what was the reason for the remeshing? I didn't catch that part. What was?
Oh, the reason? Yeah, I got a little bit in trouble with my topology right here in the laser Lego.
Okay.
And then I was like, oh man, they're gonna be fighting those vertices in there for a little while. So I'm gonna just like, yeah, just gonna rebuild this topology just to get a little bit more smooth surface in there. That's all.
Okay. Well, why wouldn't you want to like Dynamesh? Remesh anyhow.
Yeah, that's a good point, because I could easily switch to sculptures right now, and I did this in the past. You know, it's like I'm not sure why I did that. Maybe it's because I'm an old fart, and sculptures is still kind of new. But yeah, I can switch at any time, I guess. You know, just yeah.
So it's just personal preference.
I guess so, yeah. Because like some of the models I posted like in my Instagram, like the time lapses, they are all sculptures. But at the same time, those are started like from spheres and everything. And this one was started from an actual mesh. And maybe I got stuck to that, I guess.
Okay. Actually, do I have to do a remesh?
Was that?
I started a model last night. So I wasn't too sure whether remeshing or not. So
yeah, I mean, I could keep pushing the model further and not zero mesh at all. But at the same time, you know, it's like it's nice if someone in the audience is not very familiar with those things to just like use any opportunity as a, you know, a little chance to actually show something different. So that's why I kind of like you know, zero meshed it just to show how I approach. I normally copy it and then zero mesh and then reproject everything and then go from there. Yeah, but yeah. You're gonna see like the title is Fly on the Wall, and I wasn't supposed to be, you know, kind of compromising the way I do stuff, but I keep my eye, you know, it's like open for being helpful with you guys, you know, like all of you are talented guys, but not all of you are experienced with all the softwares, you know. So I'm trying to kind of like when I go through stuff, I try to show like why I'm doing certain things, and even like mentioning the name of the menus and everything. Even though like most of you guys know all this stuff, some of you might not. So yeah, try to.
So if you do a revamp, can you get your subdivision back?
I'm sorry.
If you do a revamp you did earlier, can you create your sections?
Your audio is very choppy. Let me.
I was just you would be able to get subdivisions out of that if you had meshing.
To get subdivisions out of it.
Yeah, would that be beneficial to read it?
Yeah, this is always a great thing, right? Like, because at this point here, I can do that. Just go back in resolution and then do that thing I mentioned yesterday, which is like just turn on the dynamic subdivision. and with dynamic subdivision, then now it looks like it has a ton of resolution, but it doesn't. This is great to check for primary forms, right? So if I want to smooth things out or chamfer things or use the H polish here just like to define some shapes. So I'm gonna just do this, for example. So see, like the nose here, I can actually flatten everything. It's easier to do it here at this point and then go up in resolution later than try to fix everything in the secondary forms, you know. Kind of like it's hard to treat the secondary forms as primary. So yeah, that's why it's cool to have like a lower resolution for sure.
I've never used that dynamic
subdivision
before.
Yeah, it's cool, man. What I noticed with it is that it gets very slow, right? If your mesh is not low resolution enough, you're gonna get very slow. So sometimes to compensate, instead of like using what you normally would use for intensity, if I was like 20, for example, I have to crank it all the way like 2 or 3 times that to get similar result, because I'm actually fighting the speed that there's an impact in speed, you know, when you turn it on. So you know, things you learn with experience. Yeah. Let's see back here. It's interesting that his eyebrows are a little bit flat here. Can I just ask you guys, like, if you just like can mute your microphone if you're not asking questions, just to avoid like the feedback. I'm getting a lot of echo here. Thank you, guys. And then yeah, I just noticed this, like there is a little bit of more space here, right? Like, so his eyebrow looks like the ridge is a little bit higher, so I'm just gonna tweak that. And then this area here is very interesting, because if you're just trying to recreate what you're seeing in there, you don't quite get like the way that those forms overlap. But you see, like right now I have this gigantic gap in here. This gap should not be there. It's there just for me to be able to actually find the edges a little bit easier. But then later, this whole area here is gonna get closer to the eyelid and flatter as well. So it's gonna lose a lot of the volume. This is a very tricky area. And normally I use that technique to just like select the, you know, based on the topology like that, using the, you know, either move, scale, or rotate, using transpose, or this one here as well, like the new stuff, right? The manipulator. So if I click any area, for example, like at the top right here, and I just slide my mouse until I find the sweet spot. So around, let's say around there, a little more right here. Oh, that's good enough. So if I have that, now I can reverse this mask by clicking Control and then clicking outside here, pressing Control and then clicking outside of the model. So it reverses it for me. And now I have access to that area. So I can start showing you guys normally how I approach it. So I'm just gonna start closing this gap here. And making sure that, you know, it's like, especially like with older people, the skin starts getting very, very thin, right? Like things lose a lot of the form, all that little elasticity, the skin is kind of gone. And then it's just like deflates completely. So it's always like, if you're trying to represent a creature, right? Like you have to keep those things in mind. If you're sculpting someone like a creature, like an ogre or something like that, you have to think about the thickness of the skin, right? Like, is it something that's like you're gonna represent the same way I'm doing in there, right? Like with this kind of like thin, or is more like a thick skin, right? In that case, everything is gonna be more puffy, right? And that's gonna be across the board. Everything in terms of like the volumes and everything, you have to feel that skin it's thicker than an old person's skin. I have a fascination with old people, of course, because I really love to sculpt wrinkles and things like that. But I think it has definitely has a psychological side, because it's like my family, like in terms of health, my family always sucked. Like my father died when he was 32 years old, and then my mom when she was 55. Like grandpas, I never met my grandpas. I met the 2 grandmas, but they both died in their 60s. So like, I don't know, my family was always sucked, It's like, so I have this thing about, I don't know how many years I have in me. It might be another 10. I might be lucky and have another 50, you know, I don't know. But I kind of like take one day at a time. And I have this fascination, you know, it's like about old people, because to me they are aliens, you know. It's like I don't know many in my family who are old. But now, of course, like I have my wife, and she's like from Irish descent. And these people, they don't die. They are like Highlanders. They just like live forever. Her grandma's they're like 93, 94 years old. So, I was like, one of them actually died I think it was like 2 years ago. She was 93. The other one is now 90, 92, 93. So, you know, it's like I joke with her, you know, it's like I made some kids with you just to improve my gene pool. Yeah, so see if I can live a little bit longer, you know, it's like my legacy. Those little bastards, they're not going to be artists. No, I think I might have a chance actually to have some artists coming up, because they like drawing, and they're totally into cartoons and things like that. And I have a computer right here that's set up to install ZBrush for Matthias, who is going to turn 9, to start his little studies. I remember when he was like 4 or 5, he was on my lap here. We did some sculpting together. It was pretty fun. But I'm setting up that computer for him specifically. But yeah. Actually, let me just get back to my mask. I'm going to reverse it, and I'm going to do the opposite. Like I said, if you press Control-H, that's always nice to just hide the mask. Yep.
Hey, Kris.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that'd be great to see you, you know, resculpt the areas you masked before projection.
Uh-huh.
Would you please consider doing this? I would like to see that.
Before projecting things?
Yeah, the areas you masked before projection.
Uh-huh.
So
yeah, I kind of like
sculpting there.
I just did a little resculpting, very, very roughly. But normally what we can do, you have this brush here that's called let's see, Z. So Z project. So this guy here is the brush that you actually project from another model, right? So if I have, let's say, the Z tool here in the background. The thing about the Z project is that it's based on the normal, right? So if I try to do kind of like on the side, for example, if I'm trying to project that area right here on the cheeks, right? It's going to slide. It's going to try to project based on the normal. So we have to face the faces, face you like that. And then when you do the projection, it actually works very nicely. But you have to be careful too. Sometimes instead of like the default 50 for intensity, I use like something smaller, like let's say 13, something like that. Just like very carefully just project that, you know. So if you turn it off, then you start seeing, yeah, that little area that I captured. So from here, you can do the same. So from the bottom, we can go from bottom to top. And again, like if it hits the edge in there, it kind of is going to slide. So I'm going to try not to do that. But like I said, I mean, like this model here is still a sketch model, right? We're not going to push that hard until we get into the actual topology. We're going to be projecting this stuff too. But that's normally what I do, you know. And there's another thing that I do, which is basically like if you have a mesh that has holes in it, which I do not recommend actually, but sometimes you have a model that you have the eye sockets, they're just empty. Some people model like that, and they keep like the edges like empty, and then they hollow the inner side of the mouth, whatever you want to do, you know. Sometimes if that's the case, what you can do, you can use this masking, which is mask, and you can just say like turn off groups increase and just keep border. And then when you mask by feature, just the border, oh, there's a mask already. So this one, if I had some edges, that would, let's see if it helps if I just hide the part here just to show you the way it works. So if I had this area here hollow like that, right? And you do like a masked border, see what happened in there? Like now I have a tiny mask. I'm gonna grow it so you can see it. And then I'm gonna sharpen it, grow, then sharpen. So this is very easy. If you have like those holes in the eyes and things like that, you can always do that. And then once you have that, when you do the projection, those areas are respected. You're not going to reproject. Everything that's masked is not going to be projected. So it's an easy way to just find he looks a little bit like a pope right here, huh? He's the Pope, dude. I just modeled the Pope. So that's an easy way to do it. But of course, like, it's nice if you do that carefully as well, right? Like, if you can, don't be lazy to not like go inside of the model if necessary, right? So if I have this and I need to go inside of the eye just to check things out, I'm just gonna do that. And, you know, it's like, if I have that area in there, then I'm gonna make sure that, you know, everything goes to place. And then if I mask anything before projection, then I'm gonna do the same. I'm gonna just go, oop. And again, I'm modeling with the mouse here instead of using the tablet. Such an idiot. So I would basically like use a mask around, you know, this area here if I was about to actually reproject something. So I would try to first, like, before I do any projection, I would get these forms like as close as possible to the, actually not this model, but the destination model. I would try to approximate those things like as much as possible. And then, but if I have the eyelids in a spot that's already, you know, it's like, especially with a model that has a better structure like the other ones I have, sometimes I don't even touch it that much. I just reuse that one I have with the structure, but then just for this, this inner area, and then everything else outside here, like when it starts going to the eyelid itself, then I use this one here. But yeah, I'm gonna show all that process when I get into it. So yeah, sometimes it's cool to just like isolate on an area like that, you know, as I can see, yeah, like those forms in here. In his case, kind of depend on the age, of course, but normally like the tendency is this like to be hollow like that, right? Like, and then as you age, you start getting more volume like here. So that's why I added a little bit of that, but I don't think he has a ton of it. Seems like he has a little bit more of it's a little bit more hollow here. I'm gonna get that. It is smooth as well. Yeah, it's hard to tell, but it seems like it's coming all the way from here, so it starts to add volume right there. Fill it up a little bit. And the thing that I love about the clay buildup is that if I was trying to do the same stuff with the regular default brush, the forms would be fighting each other, because as soon as the edge of the brush hits another form, it starts deforming it. And the clay buildup is it respects a lot, you know. So if you have like closed forms like that, and if you want to build, for example, I'm gonna do it strongly so you can see it, but this form here in relation to this form, see how little they affected each other. I mean, like they combined basically, you know, it's like they respect each other like that. Later on, if I'm sculpting something more organic, instead of like this alpha here, the default square alpha, I switch to something round. Let's say, let's pick 35. And then that one, it's more organic to do, but it's basically the same principle with just like a rounded version of it, right? So it's kind of like you get all those nice forms in place. But I love it because if I try to do the same thing with the default brush, I'm gonna just use, let's see, standard, and then I'm gonna remove the alpha altogether. And then when I try to do the same thing, so let's less intensity. So right there, you see it's affecting already the top area. So I'm trying to do this, but it's affecting that. So it's like this, it becomes too blobby too fast, right? But then when you have a clay buildup, then you build that area and then this area, and they just like kind of like they collide more naturally, you know. So, I love it. And of course, like I can demonstrate as a bonus later on, like my little clay brushes here. There's a couple of them, and one that I did actually, it's a very easy one to make. Let's see if I have it here. Clay buildup, blah blah blah, intro. Stubble, where is it? Clay buildup, diagonal, this one here. So you see like there is an alpha here that's the diagonal brush, right? Normally by default is the 28. I'm using the 27 here now. And then if you build anything with that one, what happens is that also, if I show you guys the focal shift in here, it's all the way to -100. So basically like all the way down, because there's no fade, right? Like by default, you see a little inner circle in there. but if you click this one here, the circle now is full, right? And it's pretty cool because it builds things diagonally. So when you're trying to simulate clay strokes, you see how it builds up like that? It works great like for those clay renders I have. Once I have all my marks and everything in place, then I come with this guy here and I just do a little, you know, it's almost like, looks like you got a little ball of clay and it just like rubbed to the surface and just like left that mark in there. It works very nice. Of course, I would not do this symmetrically if I'm trying to simulate clay. I would do everything asymmetrical. But yeah, it's fun stuff.
Hey, Kris, talking about symmetry, what point are you usually breaking symmetry? So say you have quite different upper eyelid folds or something like that. When would you break? Just at the end, or already kind of in the middle of the process and start going individual on each side?
Yeah, I would not break anything at this point before projecting everything to the final base mesh, because I want to save some time. And I would say, like, if we are doing the detail, like all the pore detail, right? Because I'm sculpting everything by hand. In this case here, I'm going to be reusing a lot of stuff, but showing you guys how to do it. But if I was doing everything from scratch, what I would do, I would keep like doing everything symmetrically all the way until I have the face completely covered with pores. So the pores, basically, like I would break the symmetry for the pores, of course, in the center of the face, right? Like top of the nose and center of the, you know, like the chin and forehead. But then everything else would be symmetrical because it would be completely overkill if it was asymmetrical, even the pores, right? Everything symmetrically. And then the symmetry, I would start breaking up right after I have all the pores in place, because then you're going to get into the very like specific marks, right? Like, for example, the nasolabial are going to be a little shorter in one side, a little longer the other side. And normally when I carve, I'm going to be showing you guys too. It's almost like playing the connect the dots kind of game. So that's basically what happens like in real life when you have like those pores and you have the elasticity of the skin. It's almost like one connects to the next one and the next one. So those wrinkles are formed by a connection between those pores, right? Like it's just like those lines that stretch between each one. So I play this kind of connect the dots game, you know, it's like, so I start marking things and adding pimples and adding scars and things like that, just to break the symmetry completely. And then of course I go to the major forms as well. Like you said, like I go to an eyelid. And then in the case of Dick Smith, if you look, it's completely asymmetrical. Like the eyelids are completely asymmetrical. So, but at some point until I finished the detail, it was all symmetrical, right? So that's
okay, cool.
Yeah.
Thanks, man.
Yeah, no problem. I see some of you guys working on your stuff. That's great to see.
Hey, Kris.
Hey.
So I was going to do a character, and then you start talking about like sculpting people that you admire, and of course I got a little subconscious. I was like, damn it.
No, man. No, don't listen to me, man.
Wait, no. So I actually totally agree with you, because it's much better to actually think about somebody that you appreciate and kind of try to capture some of that essence that makes you happy. Like I'm looking at somebody, and now I won't spoil who it is, but like
yes.
Just looking at his face makes me smile. I'm like, oh, this is so cool.
Yeah.
But anyways, like I was like, oh, who are people that I admire? And for a second I thought like, oh man, maybe I'm gonna do Spielberg. So I looked at Spielberg and I was like, oh my God, this is like Harry Stan Winston. Like the portraits are so similar. But anyways, so I had a question for you.
Mm-hmm.
How do you tackle subtlety versus exaggeration? Because I see a lot of your faces have a lot of character, but they're also very rich in mass and form, versus doing somebody much more subtle and fine, like getting big masses kind of destroys that, you know.
Yeah, I think it comes from this thing about like thinking about how the forms work, right? Like, so for example, I'm very conscious about like when I'm sculpting something like this part here, right? Like it's all part of the subtlety part that I remember, like that I marked this area here very well, right? Like just to have a reference, because I know that there's a change of direction and I want to make sure that I hit that, you know? So for everything I do, I'm just like doing very, very softly here. I try to imagine like those forms, like really some kind of collision happening, right? And it's kind of like it's a conscious effort constantly for every single form. Everything has to have a little bit of a meaning, you know. Of course, like when you're sketching things very fast, there is not a lot of time to think about that. But I mean, like even this sketch here, I can show you. This is actually, I want to go back to it because I like it. But when this was like, I think it was one of the first models I ever posted on my Instagram. Let's see, 2017. Let me go back all the way down. Yeah, I see. Like this was the first post. That was the Hitchcock. So this was like one night sketch, and then the second night, I think I did some more tweaking, and you know, it's like it's very subtle, like you said. Like there's a lot of subtlety in the forms, and I was using just one single image as a reference, but I was trying to capture the subtleties. You know, it's like you know, the way that those forms here in relation to the zygomatic, you know, it's like they just wrap around, and you have your zygomatic muscles just coming very, very softly from there. You know, it's like I don't come from a traditional background. I did a lot of drawing as a kid. I was kind of like a little prodigy, I guess, because I had like my, you know, it was like the school was actually offering like 50% to my mom, so she paid just 50%. And I did drawings for a while, but then at 17 years old, I stopped completely. But I even forgot what I was going with this. Yeah, it's like when it gets to this type of portrait, you know, I think what I try to do is always like to try to find the subtlety instead of like, oh, I remember what it is. When you're a traditional artist, especially a sculptor, and you're really concerned about putting the primary forms in place first, right? You're gonna try to do your best to mark those forms very strongly. So you're gonna sketch like a skull, and you're gonna put those forms very strongly in there. Everything's gonna be very chiseled and everything. And then you're gonna start adding the subtleties later on. You're gonna just like smooth those areas, and you're gonna add the secondary forms, and everything is very structured, right? But this is a different media. That's why some people don't understand that digital media is a different media. You have freedom to actually cross and mix different, for example, primary with secondary, do whatever you want. And then in my case, I like building things in layers very, very softly from the get-go, right? So you see like the way I sculpt with the clay buildup is not like the super strong structures like I would do, for example, if I was a traditional artist. It's almost like building up in layers softly until I reached that point and I was like, okay, so that feels kind of good, kind of okay. I'm going to move to the second part in here. I'm going to build. So everything is built very organically, you know. It's almost like layers of skin going on top of each other. And I think that's the different approach, I guess. That's why you get like from the beginning all the way to the end, you're going to see subtlety, is because I'm concerned about the subtlety from the get-go, you know, not only like structure. That's it. Yeah. But all those models, man, I want to revisit all of them. I want to do something about them. This guy here, I kind of like it. Gonna revisit at some point. Yeah, sorry.
Yeah, sorry, man, sorry. So you remember you showed us, you know, how you customize your standard brush.
Yep.
And you changed what was that, curve graph?
Yeah. Like I have my standard brush right here, and then
what I'm saying is I don't really understand what those graphs, you know, stands for. Can you please go in a little bit depth on it?
Sure. Yeah. So each one of those alphas here, it has a different type of fall off. If you look between those two here, this one has a very pointy, like you know, it's like the white area is very small. This one is a little bit wider. So that's why I picked the 39, because naturally is already sharper than the other brushes. So I start with that. So it gets standard, and I click this alpha 39. But then by default, your alphas in here. By default, you have this, let's reset this curve. It's just this, right? So if I look at the alpha, it looks exactly like the alpha was already. But then if I click in this curve, and I'm gonna click right in the middle here, click on it, and then move it that way, that means that the top of it, if you observe like this area right here, this is the top of it. That means that's the tip of the pencil, or whatever you wanna use, your carving tool. So it's basically like upside down right here. So if you look at the upside down, so that point in there at the top, that's the one that's going to define the cursor, the brush. So if I do something like this, for example, and I make it, let's say, I make it kind of like squarish at the top, like that. So now if I try to sculpt with that, let's see, let's make it stronger. It's not as sharp anymore, right? It has a little bit of a kind of like a squarish tip. But then if I go again and I just tweak this one, let's reset it. Reset and make that point again upside down. It's like a pencil upside down. Then now you have this. Oh, I think my resolution is a little sucky right now. Let me see if I can just subdivide once. Yeah. So now you have a little bit more sharper kind of point. And this doesn't work with the default stroke either. So it's a combination of those things. It's the standard alpha 39 with a little tweak in the alpha, but also the stroke. Because like I said, if I have the stroke here, by default ZBrush uses 0.2. And if I try to do that, look at all the dots. If I do a fast movement, that's what you get. So to prevent that, you just go here and just like 0.02. And now I can do a fast movement. You're going to be represented a little bit deeper than before, but then you can just compensate, just go to intensity and just make it smaller. But now it's super smooth, you know. That's all it is. I mean, like some people, they use the DAM standard that's already there. This is from Damien Canderel. I don't know how you pronounce his name. It's kind of French or French Canadian. And so that's the brush that people normally use. But like I said before, the thing I don't like about it is because it kind of like carves and pinches at the same time. And then the pinching is always problematic when you're kind of like exporting displacement maps, because you want to make sure that everything is as flat as possible within the surface. And then if I need to pinch, I'd rather just sculpt based on the normal instead of like really pulling things together, you know.
So the lighter.
I'm sorry? You kind of froze in there. Oh, you guys, the whole thing is frozen here. Are you guys, can you hear me?
Yes.
Oh, okay. Oh, man,
Yes.
it froze for 2 seconds in there. I was like, oh, man.
Yeah.
Whoa, what was that? What was that?
What is that? They're spying on me. Someone is hacking my computer. And I'm a conspiracy theorist. You know I'm going to think.
Really? Yeah, I know that. I know that. So what I was saying, that the lighter area on the graph, the curve graph, actually represents the cross section of the tip of the brush. Is that correct?
Exactly. Yeah.
Okay.
It's a tip like upside down, basically.
All right. All right.
Okay.
Thanks a lot, man.
Yeah. We have about 15 minutes. If you guys have any questions, please feel free. I'm going to be modeling here. Did you guys notice yesterday the quality of the video was a little bit inferior? The one I posted yesterday?
Yeah, I feel like that way.
Yeah, it's I don't know what happened, but I think there was the thing that I shared in there. I shared with this optimization for full screen, which is kind of weird because it looks perfect in my iPhone, and it kind of like even the aspect ratio looked perfect in the iPhone. I think that's what they meant, something like maybe for mobile. And but I turned it off today, so let's hope that this one is going to be smooth, because at this point here I'm sculpting. I'm sculpting just like you can see the stuff I'm doing, even if it's the resolution is not as good. So yesterday video, I was checking it and it was fine. The thing that I noticed that was bad was that the cursor here in ZBrush, it basically like overrides the cursor from Windows. So you can always see the cursor in ZBrush. But then when I was showing stuff in Maya, the cursor was gone with that mode. and then I did some tests right after, and every time I turned that mode, it would make it disappear. So I learned that. So today I have that off. So hopefully you're going to be able to see everything. But my concern is more like towards the next modules that we're going to be talking about, like Maya specifically, and going through menus and menus of stuff. And I want to make sure that everything is super sharp so you guys are not lost, you know. Also ZBrush, of course, but at least here, if I'm sculpting, you guys can see what it is, even if it's not like super high res.
Mm-hmm.
so funny. I removed a little bit of that sketchy beard they put just as a reference, and he kind of lost a little bit of him. Seems like I'm gonna need to put that little beard again. Actually, I think what I'm gonna do tonight is just create like some proxy hair. And normally when I do that, if you never did this, I mean, it's simple. You're just gonna select like some faces, right? Like just paint the selection. Just gonna do like some crappy one here just to show you, because I'm gonna do more carefully later. So if I'm painting a selection like that, and you, of course, you're gonna do all the way around, blah, blah, blah. So very crappy like that for now. Let's cut it. And so what you're gonna do, you're just gonna go to your extract. So under your subtool, you have the extract button right there. And then by default, it has this thickness here that's 0.2. You can try just to see. It's not gonna apply it. It's just gonna show you a preview. So it's gonna be thick. Actually, this one is kind of okay. So kind of okay, yeah. I can even go thicker. So if I tweak this one to 0.03 and I do it again. So that's basically like the way you do it. So you just extract it like that, and then you accept it. And now this is masked, so I'm gonna unmask, and then it's probably gonna mask the original model as well. So if you look at here, it's masked. So it preserves that. They're gonna mask it. So once you have this model, then of course you can start sculpting on it. Of course, I just did a very crappy one here, but oh, sorry, this one. But then yeah, so another thing you can do, you can at this point here, you can just go to your smooth brush. Let's see, smooth, and where is it? Huh, I thought I could just simply go to my sculptures mode here. It's not accessing, I don't know why. That's weird. Let's see if I have access in his face. No.
Do you have backface masking on maybe?
Do you think that turns it off?
Yes, it does.
Oh, interesting.
I think so. I figured that the last time.
Ah, dude, you're so right. Look at that. See, I'm living and learning. Thank you.
Yeah, no problem.
So right now, let's go back to this one. So if I turn on sculptures, and I can just optimize this whole thing. Remember when I said like you can create, like you can basically decimate things by creating like a bigger brush, like just switch the brush to something much bigger. And then if you do that, you can really decimate everything. So that's basically the way I started, you know. And then from here, of course, you're going to sculpt the whole thing. So I'm going to do it more carefully. But yeah, I'm going to do like a beard, probably using the same approach, and then the hair as well. And just sculpt like to look like something. Yeah. Let's delete this one for now. How is it going so far, guys? Like any interesting information so far? Or oh, I already knew all of this, man.
Well, I have one comment.
Yes.
I'm actually wondering about your quality difference and wondering if the audio kind of suffers. Because today there was a lot of like choppiness and robotic voices and like.
Oh, that was from the audience actually. Someone had kept the mic open, and then there was a lot of echo for me as well.
Right.
Yeah. So it would be nice, like if we always remember, you know, it's like if we are talking. We can keep the mic open, but then as soon as we stop talking, to just like mute ourselves, because yeah, there's a lot of interference. Even in the first one, we did like a test run. Oh, what I'm doing here, man? I'm sculpting with sculptures? No, hopefully not. No. You know, it's like even with that one, I mean, like I think like maybe you had the cell phone, right?
Yeah. Well, it was Mother's Day, and I
yeah.
was at a restaurant.
Yeah. That's awesome, man. Like that's dedication. You're the restaurant Mother's Day talking.
Yeah, well, you know, I've known my mother for many years. You know?
That's awesome.
This was my first class, you know.
Yeah. But yeah, so that was actually introduced a lot of interference. But then today, Yeah, so it all depends, you know. It's like if you're conscious about that, then I think things are gonna get a little bit better. But when I'm talking just myself here, the quality is being pretty nice. I've been checking the videos; it's pretty nice. So let's see, like 1:22. We still have like 10 minutes to fire some questions.
Hey, Kris.
Yeah.
Ah, there you are. I have a question for you.
Yes. Sven!
Yes, it's me.
It's me.
Tell me if you've already gone noise, because I got here, you know, a little late, like I was telling you.
That's okay.
You know, when you're doing you got these kind of pits for the caruncula.
Uh-huh.
Are you kind of building it to prep for the way that you render your carunculas, or are you going to stick more of a caruncula? You know how we have carunculas at work and they're sort of almost a separate object.
Yes.
Should we be making it like this in order to get it to render better? Or?
I'm gonna tell you that this one here that I have, it's pretty much like it's very similar to what I have in my my topology right now, but this is just like a background for it, right? So I keep this one just as a reference. So I create the pit in there, but then I create like a separate object, and I basically cover this with the object, because this way I can have a little background in case of the transparency leaks or something like that, because I use a little transparency, right? And normally the transparency starts only from this point on all the way to close to the iris. Let's see, like if I open this one, let's see, right here, let's see if I have an eye close up. Like this is a good one, but I think Dick Smith had a better one. Let's see if we can find this one. Yeah, this one. So so this one he still has a little problem. I think this one was before I fixed it. But yeah, it's like it's basically solid in the interior here, and then as you get to this area here, it gets a little softer. But the way I have it set up, basically, like I don't know if you can see it here. This one looks like it's ending very shortly, but the one that I have used like with more success, I would say, it goes all the way pretty close to the iris. It's very extended, but then there's this nice gradient that blends the entire thing. So if I'm modeling here, this is going to be completely covered, and then it should extend probably like all the way until this area here.
You know, right now I'm using my Gen Man, which has basically the same carunculas that we have at work.
Mm-hmm.
Do you think that those ones would work okay for this, or do you think it's better if I follow whatever you're doing for your home brewed carunculas?
The ones we have at work, they are like a separate object, right?
No, they're the same object as the head, but they kind of
partition.
Yeah, separate partition. Yeah.
Yeah, separate partition. I would say like that the best way would be, like, at least like in my opinion, was to cover it with the actual separate object later. But I would keep it in there just as a pit, you know, just as a reference. Just make it a little deeper maybe than what you would normally have. Mm-hmm. Because the caruncula you apply on top is not thick. It's just like a very thin thing. And it just serves like just to blend the things, you know, it's like blend with the sclera. So yeah, but you can keep the way you have.
I just want to, I don't know if you got some kind of fancy trick to get better renders than we have at work. I'd have no problem with switching over to what you're doing here, especially for the class. But
I thought they use what I said with the transparency trick for the Hulk, didn't they?
No, the Hulk use the same carunculas that our Gen has, so there isn't anything different done on that. Because
I remember like someone came to my desk and they're like, "Oh, how are you doing that?" I was like, "Oh, it has the transparency," and then I was like, "Okay, we can do that." And I thought it was.
That's very nice, Kris. We'll move along now.
Yeah. All right. See, nobody listens to me at work, man. That's why. Why we are not getting better results?
That seems like your new career has already started.
That Kris is a hack. Anyway.
Kris. Shady dude, what can you say?
Kris, I have a question.
Yes.
About the eyes, So you.
What did I do here? Check this out.
You use just a simple sphere, right?
I just destroyed the eye, by the way. Look at there. What's that? The sphere? Yeah. In this case, here is just a simple sphere. But then for the final one, I'm gonna
and you later on you gonna put final shape, right?
Yes,
and
yes.
Adjust again.
Yeah, because everything is about like the proportions, right? Like when I spoke about like the size of the face, the height of the face would be like between 8 and 9 inches. And then there's this whole proportion, for example, like the size of the iris in relation to the eyeball. There's a proportion we have to follow as well. I think it's like 1/3 or 2/3 or something like that. So we're going to go through that, like those steps, and then have something that has the bulge in place. I think the eyeball itself, if you look at the real eyeball, I don't think it's a complete like globe. We kind of like, it's a little bit more elongated. But then, but of course, like it's an organic thing, right? Like, and then when it's moving around, it's easy to control it, easy for the body to control that way independently of the shape. But then if you're rigging the whole thing, it's much easier if you have an actual sphere, right? You're not going to see much difference anyway. One thing that I discovered like not long ago actually is that how much the iris is not centered, right? Not the iris, but the pupil in relation to the iris is not centered.
Yes, like Strabic.
Not only that. I mean, like when I'm sculpting, of course, there's this thing that I normally like rotate the eyeballs like 2 to 3 degrees outwards to basically like that's why when you look at my characters, look like they are looking to the infinity or whatever. You know, it's like they're looking like far away, right? Because I kind of like do this little rotation instead of like keeping it straight, because they always look cross-eye if you do it straight. But I'm talking about the position of the pupil in relation to the iris. There is a bunch of them. If you search like on Google, you know, for something similar like a center, like a off-center pupil or something like that. If you search on Google, you're gonna start seeing all those examples. And some people have very extreme, you know, like, of course, like it almost look like an illness or something. But then, but some of them, like the natural thing is to have a little bit asymmetrical. It's a little bit off center, and it's very interesting to see. You know, I normally don't add to my characters, but I was thinking about doing that just to add a little extra realism to it. You know, but it's something interesting. I mean, like we learn a new thing every day, I guess.
Yeah, because the eyes for me is the hardest part of the model. You know,
it is. It is hard.
Yeah, but when I sent to Maya and started the render, I realized the eyes are incorrect and I have to go back to ZBrush.
Yes.
Put it out again.
But you know what? I tell you, like the eyes, they sell the character, right? You can look at the Pixar characters and they are like cartoons and they look alive. They feel like they have thoughts and things like that. You know, it's like it's all in the eyes. And one of the objectives of this class here is to, you know, make sure that you guys are doing awesome eyes, you know, so like the shader is going to help to actually blend things together. And I tell you, like, once you have that little formula that actually works, it's going to work almost like every time, you know, it's like you can add the eyes like to an unfinished character and it's going to pop. So, yeah, that's pretty cool that, I hope to see like your characters in the future, like with realistic eyes and everything. I'm seeing like people using like scan data for the eyes, and they don't look as realistic. I think they're missing something. There's a little subtlety in the way they are assigning things. I don't know if it's the iris that I actually sculpted the iris to have volume and everything, but or if it's the I use like caustic effect, right? Like there's a caustic effect that applies on top of the displacement and generates this little subtle kind of like depth to it. So I don't know, like if people are bypassing some of those steps, but I've seen some stuff that was all based on scans and they didn't look very realistic.
Yeah, that's I realized.
Hey, Kris.
Yeah.
One last question. Are you ever painting sometimes irises on your eyeballs in ZBrush just to see where your look is going, or just to shape your eyelids? Stuff like that. For the eyelids, I normally just shape them with a sphere. I don't even bother too much with the little you know, with a little bulge in the front, right? But then once I have everything in place, right,
and now I'm finally like adding all the fine details and everything, and I'm making sure things are working. Then if I have like a set pose that I'm going to render for a portrait, right? Then I'm going to make sure that I actually take the bulge in account and actually deform my eyelid. But if you see like my renders, I keep like changing things all the time. I change like the HDRI all the time, and I change the eye positions as well. And I'm actually not even caring too much. I'm letting the bulge actually intersect, right? Like the retina is actually intersecting with the eyelid, and I'm not too concerned about that because normally like I have the eyelashes that are kind of creating that little disguise, like a little shade in there. So you're not seeing too much. But let's say if you're doing like a portrait and you want to make sure that it looks correct, and it's like, okay, I'm not going to move the eyes from this point on, then I would just like sculpt the bulge, conform to the bulge. But or else, it's like you can, if you are going to go for a full-on animated character, right? You can actually rig and create a deformation in there that actually you can just rotate the eyeball and everything falls into place. Yeah.
Yeah. Cool, thanks, man.
Yeah, sure. But at the end of the day, I mean, like everything, it's almost like impossible to rely on any rig, right, to create something that's absolutely like perfect. Even if you have like an awesome rig, I mean, like that little detail I was talking about, like when the eyelid is touching the eyeball, and you create that little thin kind of surface in there, that little blend. That's the kind of stuff, people, even if they have like a massive, like super well thought out like rig for the eyes, they don't take into account those tiny little subtleties. And our bodies just do it because it's there. It's a physical thing, right? And just do it. Super simple to realize that, because just like forms like rubbing on each other. But then a rig would have to be like extremely complex to accommodate that. And on top of that, you have the displacement, right? That's happening. And when you're rigging something fairly low res, so it doesn't account for that super subtle detail that you're going to have to deform on top. So I don't know how far we are from this, but there's a lot of cheats that we do to create like realistic stuff these days. But in terms of like really reproducing life in the computer, is going to take a very long time, I think, if we can ever do it. But anyway, guys, we are at 11:35, and I'm going to have to say, thank you again. And I see you guys tomorrow, same time. Is that okay?
Sweet. Thank you, Kris.
Thank you, guys.
Cheers, man.
Okay, thank you, Kris.
Yeah,
See you guys tomorrow.
See you guys. Have a good night.
Morning, Kris.
Last question, a quick question. Can I put my model in the
Google Drive? Yes, please.
Yeah. I will put my model. Okay.
Yeah. Oh, and you guys, like, I noticed that most of you guys have Google accounts, but 3 people have. I mean, like, I tried to send to them, but it seems like they don't have Google or Gmail or anything like that. If you guys can register just for the purpose of the class, you can create like any name you want in there. Just give me the email address, because everything operates with Google calendars. And you guys who have the Google stuff, you're getting probably like those reminders all the time, which is pretty cool to keep on track. But then if you don't have that, I mean, like, you're probably going to miss the bus from time to time. I'm trying to send emails, of course, to remind you guys, but with Google, it's easier. But anyway, thank you, guys. See you tomorrow.
Thank you. Thank you, man. See you tomorrow.
Kris. See you.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Thank you. Let's turn it off. There you go.